Number 3, because he doesn't stop there. Number 3 is we are to guard against idols. 1 John 5:21 says this, little children, keep yourselves from idols. Psalm 106:36, and they served their idols, which became a snare to them. Here's why I say we need to guard against idols. One of the things that I've been fascinated in Texas has been this. I love that everything is so green. Okay, that's something we didn't have in Nevada. It's something you had to work really hard at. You had to water a lot to get green stuff. I remember my wife and I just saying, look how green and green and green and amazing it is. And so what I've noticed, and I do it too, is one of the things that we make sure is that you want to make sure that your yard just looks really, really good. I mean, you want to have it to where you mow, and I know a lot of the guys in this room probably do the same thing, and you got the straight lines. You want to make sure it looks all great and nice, and so you get it looking just fantastic and amazing. And I mean, you want to take pictures, post it on Instagram, do that kind of stuff, and just make sure everybody knows, look at this amazing, beautiful yard. You know what happens at my house? Like the next day. Like literally the next day. For some reason, there are these weeds. I think it's called crabgrass or something along those lines. It looks like grass, but it's not really grass. I've got a nice even yard. It's right there at the right height and stuff. And then like the next day, bloop, 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 all these little weeds just start popping up all over the place. Now, I can go through and I can just mow it down again, but you know what's going to happen? The next day it's going to pop back up right again. And so one of the things that my kids, one of their chores that we have fun with is we have this little game called weed pulling. We go around and we pull the weeds out of the yard. It's fun. The neighbors even came over, 2 weeks ago, and they started participating in weed pulling. Good little competition to see who can get the most weeds. Now, why is it that we're doing this? Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to guard my lawn against this natural tendency for these weeds to keep popping back up. Because if I just pretend like it's not going to happen, it's not going to be very long before my entire yard is mostly weeds and a little bit of grass. And in the same way, John says, listen, it's important that we guard ourselves against idols because they tend to pop up over and over and over again in our lives. So here's what I mean. Maybe I've gotten rid of and I've been working on this source idol of control. And I'm working on it and I'm doing those things. If I'm not careful, hey, the power source idol is going to pop up over here, or the comfort idol, or whatever it might be. Maybe it's the approval one. And so we have to guard and make sure that we've done the things that these are not going to pop up in our lives. Why it's so important for us to guard against these things is because of this truth. We often turn to our idols for freedom, but we actually find bondage. We often turn to our idols for freedom, but we actually find bondage. Because here's the process of what tends to happen with an idol. Hey, the very first thing that starts to happen is you start to have affection for it. You start to love it. Because sometimes, in fact, I would say most of the time, the idol initially delivers at the front. It feels pretty good for a minute. It seems to be working for a moment. Like control, man, it really feels good and everything's going and things are working here for a minute. So you start to have that affection towards that idol. Then the second thing that starts to happen, you start to trust it. You start to go, well, it's been working for me, so if it's working for me right now, then I'm going to depend on this. I'm going to start trusting this idol. And then the third thing that starts to happen, though, is then we start to obey the idol. It went from I am in control of this, and now this is working to me, to now I am dependent upon this thing. So a great example, let's go back to money as the surface idol there. But let's go deeper to the source idol. And let's say that the source idol is control. And I've got money to make sure that I can control these things. So I start by looking at it and having affection for it and going, hey, this is working for me. Then I start to trust it, going, you know what, a problem came up and I put some money towards it and it worked. And so therefore, what I need to do is I need to earn more money so I can have enough there to make sure that if something happens, that it's going to work for me. But then a problem comes that money won't fix. Then a problem comes along that I don't have enough money for. And so we have to be careful that we don't lose sight of guarding against the idols in our life.